Welcome back to the Noel Arnason Sports podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about why Rick Tocchet decided not to re-sign with the Canucks, his replacement options, addressing a top six center, and which the Canucks really need, and potentially some wingers as well, and just going over maybe through the playoffs a little bit up to this point, because obviously the Canucks aren't in them, but a lot of us still watch the playoffs even though they aren't in because we like hockey. So obviously there's a statement by Rick Tocchet, and he said, "I'm choosing to move on from the Vancouver Canucks. Family is a priority, and with my contract lapsing, this becomes an opportune time. While I don't know where I'm headed or exactly how this will play out for me over the near term, I feel like this is the right time for me to explore other opportunities in and around hockey." Um, and to me, that almost sounds like maybe he could go back to being on TNT for the broadcast because he did do that before he signed with the Canucks to be the head coach 2 seasons ago. Or he could still honestly, like, there is still a chance of him going to coach the Flyers or even now the Penguins. Um, but I think I don't think this looks particularly good on the organization as a whole. Um, because that was, of course, Rutherford and Alvin have talked about how he was the coach they wanted. He was the coach Hughes wanted. You want Hughes to stay in the long term, but the coach that he wants, you can't re-sign. And apparently they threw out a massive offer for him, but apparently it was like a 5 by 5. If you're throwing out a massive contract like that at a coach, and he's deciding not to stay, he must know, like there must be something there that we don't know that is impacting it more than just family. And I know he's talked about how he wants a practice facility, and that was part of the reason why apparently is because the Canucks have no practice facility, and feels like forever they've been trying to get a practice facility, and you can't always be practicing at Rogers Arena or UBC Thunderbirds practice, right? Like they need their own practice facility, but um, there just hasn't been one built. There's been no plans. The Aquilini just always talks about how he's looking, and it's just not a good look. And obviously Hughes' contract is up in 2 years, so like whether he thinks that, oh, if I sign more than 2 years, I know that I'm not gonna have Hughes. Is it worth staying? There's also that possibility too, because he must know something that we don't know, and that's why he is staying. But Rutherford said, "We did everything in our power to keep him, but at the end of the day, Rick felt he needed a change. He's a good friend, a good coach, and we can't thank him enough for all he did for our organization. Talk is a stand-up guy, and we wish him nothing but the best moving forward." And like I just repeated, it's just kind of disappointing that the coach that they wanted, and you remember when Bruce Boudreau got fired, and um, there was weeks on end we knew he was getting fired and talk was going to be a replacement guy, but yet he wasn't. Like they hadn't announced it yet, and they worked so hard to get this guy. They went through all that, and this almost seems like karma for how they treated Boudreau at the end of his term with the Canucks, where he knew after that last game that he was getting fired because they're back at home, and then they get Tocchet, and now 2.5 years later, he just dips out on them as well. And now they're coachless, and the worst part is that you lose guys like Adam Foote, who Hughes also loves. Like Foote is one of the most respected D coaches in the league, and now all of a sudden you don't have him, and you don't have Gonkar now, who was one of the best offensive defensemen back in his time in the 2000s, early 2010s, right? Like you don't have those guys anymore because those guys go where the head coach goes, and a new head coach isn't going to want to keep the same assistants that the last head coach had. So, obviously, it's just disappointing. You talk like when Mike Sullivan and the Penguins mutually departed, that you think could be a good fit because Rutherford and Alvin were in Pittsburgh when Mike Sullivan was the head coach, but obviously he just accepted a job with the Rangers. And so now that leaves Peter Laviolette as the front runner for the Canucks head coaching vacancy, which he obviously in 06 with the Carolina Hurricanes, Rutherford was the general manager then, and Laviolette was the head coach, and they won the cup. But that was back in 2006, right? And one of the main issues I have with Laviolette is he's not good at developing prospects. You've seen over the last couple of years with the Rangers as a head coach how many of their guys have panned out? Barely any, right? Like Capo Caco, not really. Even we got Philip Hedl from him. Philip Hedl only has 170 career points. Alexis Lafreniere also is playing on the third line for them. There is I don't think he's too good at developing prospects, and I don't think his systems are what the Canucks need. I think the Canucks need a more offensive system, and not to say he's on we've seen that the Rangers, especially last year, are a scoring juggernaut, right? I know they weren't this year, they didn't make the playoffs this year either, but last year they won the President's Trophy, and they're cruising their way to win every single night because of their top guns. But I don't know. And then you have Manny Malhotra, who's in Abbotsford right now. He's the head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks. He Rutherford said he would be considered for the job, and he had a fantastic season in Abbotsford, right? They finished with 92 points. They made the playoffs. They won a round. But is he ready for the head coaching job yet? Right? He only has 1 year of head coaching experience, and to go from not being a head coach at all to coaching 1 year in the AHL and then the next year jumping all the way up to the NHL, it just seems like a big jump. And I think I would prefer if he was going to be a head coach of the Canucks for another 2 to 3 years of him coaching in Abbotsford, and then make the jump up to the Canucks, than rather just because you don't know how he's going to handle situations. And obviously he proved he is a good enough coach that he can lead AHL team to 92 points when most of their top players are also called up to the Canucks because of how many injuries they have. It's still he still did a great job, and it was impressive, but I'm not sure if he's the guy that they're looking for, where they need someone to just step in who already has that coaching experience that can take them not only to the playoffs but far into the playoffs. Because you want Hughes to re-sign here. Well, you're not going to get Hughes to re-sign here if you miss the playoffs again next year, and then the year after your first round loss, and then he's a UFA, right? You need a deep playoff run this year, and you need to be at least first or second in the Pacific Division that second year, and hopefully that you can go far into the playoffs that year as well, and that can convince him to stay. If not, you're going to have to trade him at the trade deadline in 2 years. And do you want to trade? He's the best defenseman the Canucks have ever had, so I personally would never want to see him in another jersey other than a Canucks jersey, but what are you going to do? And then Joel Quenneville, obviously, he's interviewing with the Ducks. He's just able to coach again in the NHL. We all know what happened with the Blackhawks and why he wasn't able to coach for a couple of years because of that. I just don't think it's not likely for the Canucks to go out and get Quenneville. And obviously his systems worked really well in Chicago for a lot of years, but he also hasn't been able to coach in a couple of years. So it's kind of throwing up how he'll be in the NHL again. And then Jay Woodcroft, he is a more offensive guy, but I just don't know. When he got fired from the Oilers were doing atrocious defensively, and I'm not you get the offense, but you don't get the defense from him. So I'm not sure if he's the correct fit as well. And he's a good coach, and I think it would be interesting, but I just don't know if he's the right guy. And then Mark Savard, another guy, another offensive coach. He could seem like a good fit for the Canucks, but then you also have to look where is he going to land up? Is he an ideal landing? Does he want to come to Vancouver? So there's that. But then, and then if we move on to addressing a top six, for center depth specifically, We've talked about it a lot the last couple of months. Sam Bennett is the ideal candidate for the Canucks to go after. He's a well-rounded player, physical, which the Canucks obviously need. They don't have that guy like JT Miller anymore who's willing to do all the dirty work, willing to hit people, willing to do that. And like you have Kiefer Sherwood who set the NHL record for hits in a single season this year. But it's not like he's physical, and same with Josh was physical, but like they're not like that gritty physical where they can get under people's skin, right? Um, but then you're paying $10 million a season, so it would be like a 10-by-7, and for a guy who's never hit 60 points in a season before, and he probably won't ever hit 60 points in a season. Um, and he's the best replacement for Miller, but a lot of these fans are getting mad. Oh, you're paying Pedersen $11.6 million to hit with the down year hit 45 points. Well, you're going to be paying Sam Bennett $10 million to get 55 points, right? Like, but because he's Canadian and I think the fans will be upset with him. They might not because they like a lot of these fans love. Oh, he's a big Canadian boy. He does all the dirty work, and that's what makes him worth $10 million. But I don't know. And then obviously there's been talks about Mitch Marner, which Mitch Marner he's not a center. He's a right winger. And he's the best player in this UFA class after Rantanen signed long term with the Stars. Canucks could afford him with some moves, but you're looking at $12.5 million for 7 years, which it's in the Canucks price range, but like I said, they have to make the moves. It's not likely to happen. Why would he plays for his hometown team right now? Why would he want to, if he can stay, or he can go to another team where it's either he's going to stay for his hometown team in Toronto or he's going to go to the States, I think. And like he plays winger, multiple stints at center, but did not come up much because he's not obviously hasn't played a whole lot of center, so he's not going to work out at center for them. And then staying on the topic of wingers, then you look at Nikolai Ehlers, plays left wing. He would cost around $8 million, probably 7 years as well for the contract length. You're looking at the same price as Brock Besser. So if you want Ehlers as your replacement, it's either you re-sign Ehlers or you re-sign Besser. They're similar players in a lot of aspects. Playoff wise, he only has 14 points in 37 playoff games. Ehlers, where Besser has 23 points in 29 playoff games. So Ehlers is a better regular season player than Besser, but come playoff time, Besser is a better player than Ehlers. And we saw Besser last year, especially against Nashville, with those clutch goals. And it really depends. I would rather have someone who's clutch come playoff time than be great in the regular season and then not doing so well in the playoffs. And then Matt Duchene is an older center. He's 34, right? So he's technically would be considered out of his prime. And he's had a really good year with Dallas this year. He did kind of fall off, but then he came to Dallas and then he rejuvenated it. And but you still have to worry about his production falling off because he's 34. How much longer can he keep this up? And is it just Dallas' system that is a good fit for him? Because he did fall off before, and so is he? Is he just getting these numbers and looking good because of the systems that Dallas has in place, or can he go to any other team in the league and have the same amount of points and production, and do the same things, or not? And he would be able to step in with the Canucks and probably on that. Like you want a second line center, but he would probably be a third line center because that'd probably be the best fit for him. But yeah, and then Tavares, Marchand, Kane, like Patrick Kane are all long shots for the Canucks. There hasn't been much about them. Most of them probably would not want to come here. And Mikael Granlund, I haven't heard anything about him as well. And um, yeah, like it's you. The problem with the Canucks have is who's gonna want to come to Vancouver right now, right? Like um, you're gonna be they're gonna have to go through the trade route, right? So I'll be talking about that next Saturday about uh trades and how the Canucks can improve their team through trades, like addressing centers and wingers through trade routes with other teams. But as far as UFA goes, there isn't much options that they're all most of them are in the Canucks price range, but it's whether they want to come to Vancouver or not. And yeah, that's it in terms of just talking about the Canucks. Just talking about the playoffs this year, obviously, the Oilers beat the Kings again. I would say no surprise there. Like the Kings went two up on the Oilers, and I honestly thought the Kings were gonna win in 5, and then the Oilers surged back to win 4 in a row, which is good. And then obviously tonight there's Avalanche Stars Game 7, and then tomorrow will be Winnipeg Blues Game 7 as well. And yeah, so I think the playoffs have been pretty good this year. In general, there's been a lot of missed calls for every single team, which it feels like that happens every single year in the playoffs. Like refs are hesitant to call things in the playoffs because it will cost teams games. But this year it seems especially bad with all the missed calls there's been. Like I know Oilers and Kings fans have been that series. There was a ton of missed calls, and then it was a game 5 in overtime, and that they called nothing for like half the second period, the entire third period, most of overtime, and then they call a trip with 2 minutes left in overtime, and the Oilers score. And a lot of Kings fans are like, you didn't call anything for 2 periods, and then out of everything you call that, right? Especially in overtime with the best power play in the league. So I don't know. I'm still I chose Avalanche to win the cup at the start of the playoffs. But if they lose tonight, obviously, so it'll be interesting to see if they beat the Stars tonight. I'll keep them as my favorite, but I'm also leaning towards Florida again. They obviously beat Tampa Bay, and everyone was writing Florida off this season. Oh, they've been to 2 cup finals in a row. It is a lot of hockey and whatnot, but they just have so much depth, and they're so good. And they're just the only reason they're slumping at the end of the regular season was because they're how injured they were. They didn't have Matthew Tkachuk in their lineup. Like Matthew Tkachuk is a game breaker, and he changes the game so much, and he's back in the lineup, and they beat Tampa. Now they're in the second round, and I can easily see them going to the cup final again and possibly winning a second cup in a row. But who knows? And then as far as Carolina goes, they also have a decent chance, but I still think they still lack high end talent on that team, which they don't they have Aho, they have these other players, but and then you go to Washington as well. Washington beat Montreal in 5. Is it just Montreal put up a good fight, but is it Montreal just young and inexperienced? I know they haven't made this is the first time they made the playoffs since going to the Cup final in 2021. But I don't fully think that Montreal was a true test for Washington. But yeah, and then obviously you're gonna get the Toronto-Florida series. Toronto. The Sens put up a good fight. Pretty much every single game went to overtime in that series. And Toronto was able to capitalize on most of them. Obviously, they still lost 2 games to the Sens. But Toronto has looked different in the playoffs this year. I know, obviously, in Game 6, on Thursday that you saw the Sens score the tying goal, and it looked like Toronto was going to collapse again, and that they were going to see another Game 7 in the first round. But no, like 37 seconds later, Max Pacioretty fires one in, and they like in previous years, I don't think you have seen Toronto be able to rebound that fast, and this year they did. So I think they can still do a little bit of damage this year and maybe make it to the Eastern Conference Final. But Florida is still, so I'll choose Florida over them for now, and then Carolina and Carolina Washington. I think I'll probably choose Carolina, so you'll get the Florida Carolina Eastern Conference Final, and then I think I'd still choose Florida. So obviously the West isn't set yet. Who's going to be in the second round? So I can't really go all too far with that. But I'm saying we probably see an Avalanche Florida Stanley Cup final if the Avalanche are able to win tonight. If not, I think the Stars will be in the Stanley Cup final. It'll either be one of the two teams tonight. And yeah, that's it for me. I know it was a shorter one today, but it's the summer. There's not much Canuck news going on. But yeah, next week we'll go through Canucks trade, like getting better through trades. And yeah, thanks for watching if you're still here, and hope to see you next week.